Get started, right, Shakti?
Yeah, we are live now. We'll
Okay.
get started.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Hope you all are doing good. I welcome you all to the 94th edition of GeekNight Chennai. And before I begin, I would like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And I would like to introduce our speakers tonight, who are SasiKumar and AswinKumar, who work as application developers here at Thoughtworks Chennai. And today we'll be witnessing a session on rapid application development using Firebase. And without further ado, we'll jump into the session. Folks, you can take it forward from here. And people, before we begin, if you have any questions or doubts, you can post them in the Q&A section below. We'll make sure that we answer them. Yeah, you can get started.
Also, if you are comfortable asking your questions, you can raise your hands. We can unmute you so that you can talk.
Okay. Shall we start? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Geek Night. So today it will be myself, SasiKumar, and my colleague Ashwin. So we'll be talking about rapid software development using Baas. Baas is backend as a service. In particular, we'll be covering Firebase. So we will be covering our journey on the development, app development, with the constraints that we faced, and also in terms of time and features like that we have to do, and also in terms of how we were able to solve it using Baas. This will be followed by a demo and also a code walkthrough. So we will share an end-to-end journey of the product solving, right? Like this was a product, so we want to share the complete journey so that this could be useful for other such use cases too. Yeah. So with that, we can get started with the problem statement. So the problem that we had was we wanted to build a platform. This was a product where it will be used primarily by patients and healthcare workers. So it's like a platform where the patients can actually fill some form, enter some data, symptoms, things like that, and they can that will be assigned to certain healthcare workers, and the healthcare workers in turn will be able to chat with the patients, right? And they will be able to send attachments. And there will be, since there will be multiple healthcare workers, right? There should be a way to schedule these patients to different healthcare workers, right? And this was for a NGO. And since it involves communication, we couldn't use WhatsApp, Messenger, or anything, right? Like any ready-made things, because the anonymity of the healthcare workers had to be maintained here. So this was the problem statement, right? Like a platform with communication between, when I say healthcare workers, it could be mostly doctors, nurses, anyone with the healthcare knowledge. Right? And patients can be anyone, they can be remote, right? It's like a remote healthcare app. Problem statement is good, right? But we can, I think with the software delivery, right? Apart from the problem statement, what is more critical is the constraints, right? So apart from this, right, as I said, it was for NGO, and also so cost was a constraint, both in terms of development and maintenance. And we also wanted a working prototype within the week. At that time, the healthcare workers were already very stressed in terms of helping the patient. So we wanted to build something quickly so that they can use this platform and seamlessly switch to this. So a working prototype was expected within a week for the entire solution, right? And initially we thought, okay, what if we can buy some? I think at least evaluate some open source alternatives and then try to use something ready-made. But we couldn't find a end-to-end alternative for this platform. So we had to go through all these constraints and come up with the app, right? And this mostly will be used as a progressive mobile app where there will be push notifications and other things. At the same time, they'll be able to chat and everything. Like it should be working like a seamless app, mostly used in mobile phones. But for admins, right, to assign the patients, they also need they should be able to access the app using the web. So you have all the complexities of a traditional app. At the same time, you have a time constraint and also other development constraints, right? So with that, right? So what if we take a traditional approach of solving this problem without any of these constraints, right? Like we generally, okay, choose a front-end library or framework like React, Angular, or whatever it is, and then we have to choose a backend API, Spring, .NET, Python, anything, right? And you'll choose a database. So since it involves chatting, you need some, and chat also has attachments. So you need a way to store files. So the patients had to be like kind of allocated to different healthcare workers. So we need scheduling. That means you need a cron job, right? And so this has to go real time to the healthcare worker. So there needs to be push notification. Of course, you need a robust authentication framework, right? And the healthcare workers have to log into the protocol to the portal, right? And so obviously you will come up with some schema for storing the patient information and symptom information. So I mean, all of this, right? Doing the basic work itself, it will take almost a week, and then you have to do series setup, automated, develop CRUD endpoints. So this is a traditional way of approaching this whole problem, and you also have to build a UI that is supporting in multiple devices, because different people will be having different devices, so it should be responsive, obviously, right? And so this is a traditional approach, but is this going to work, right? Like, do we have time for this, or do you think this will work for the given client and for this particular use case, right? Like, this is an NGO, people are devoting their additional time for helping the patients, right? And we also, they are already struggling, and we wanted to build something quicker, right? So with all this constraint, do you think this is the right way to do, right? Like if we do all this, it's going to take a lot of time to even come up with a basic setup. So that's where we wanted to kind of evaluate other options. So any thoughts, suggestions? I mean, what would people, anyone face some similar situations? Just want to take a pause here. I mean, the title itself says the solution, but I wanted to hear from others as well at this point. But I think all of us agree, right? Like we can't take this traditional approach for this problem, right? Like it's, yeah. So yeah, SaaS, yes, we will come to that. But I mean, in this case, right, it was a complete package and we couldn't get something like a SaaS here, right? So, and some of the UI has to be customized. So SaaS was not an option here as well. Okay, so with that, right? So without even thinking SaaS, Baas, Firebase, right? The next step would have been to take some intermediate step, right? Like how do you use some ready-made libraries, third-party services? Like even going one step without even going one step further, an intermediate step of trying to figure out, are there any libraries? Are there any library for chat? Are there any third-party services, right? So that could be an immediate next step. So with this, I will pass it on to Ashwin. Ashwin can.
Yeah, thank you, Sasi. As Sasi mentioned, right? So before thinking about that Baas and then that integrated solution, like just look at some like alternative solutions that are available in the market, right? Sasi already shared what are the requirements for the applications, right? So we need the authentications, and then we have to set up the schema, and then we need push notifications, and then the chat window, and also that cloud service for maintaining the resources and the deployment or CI/CD things, right? So like for all of these, many services or many platforms are providing these options, right? So let's say, for example, for third-party services, OAuth is there, and for the database, the schema problem, we have lots of NoSQL cloud databases, and for the scheduling, we have some schedulers in the cloud services, and also for the chat we have there are lots of chat libraries that are available as a package, and the infrastructure solutions, right? So everything is it's not integrated. Even if we want to develop the application in this way, since we are going to using the library, but still we have to set up our backend, and in the backend we have to import those libraries, and we have to move the we have to do the necessary code for implementing such things, right? Uh, what if all these services are available in the single platform, right? So if it is available, that will make our development very easy, and then we don't need to spend much time on the back end, and we can directly spend our time on the UI user experience, right? So already we mentioned, it is a progressive web application, and it will be used by many users in many different type of devices, right? So there also we have to concentrate more. At that point, we started analyzing about the backend as a service thing, right? So yeah, so here I would like to quote Martin Spover's definition about the backend as a service, right? So basically, it's it's include the custom code run in the managed ephemeral container on a function as a service, and it related single page application. Such architectures remove the traditional way of dependency on the server components. I mean the server architectures, right? So basically, that serverless architectures may benefit from the significancy in reducing operational costs, complexities, and the engineering efforts that we have to put for developing such big applications, right? So we thought about this way of approach, and then we started looking about what are the platforms are providing this backend as a service, right? So that time, we found these options. These are all the common options. Most of that people were suggested at that time. So these three are backend as a service solutions, like Firebase, Supabase, and AWS Amplify. So considering all these three, so all these three are providing almost all the requirements that we have before us, right? So the Firebase is providing almost all the functionalities that we require, and also Supabase, right? So it is a open source, and it is offering that hosting, and then the relational database, and then that cloud storage, those things it is providing. And also similarly AWS Amplify as well, it's providing the SDK to develop that mobile applications, web application, and hosting is supported. And then in AWS itself, we are having lots of services for the cloud storage, and then that scheduling, right? But the thing is, the Firebase options that it is providing is satisfied all of our requirements. Basically, the functionalities that we need, right? For example, the chat application, and then we need a storage, the NoSQL storage, and the push notifications, and then the cloud storage, authentication. So all these things are provided in this place. And the configuration and then setup required for the backend services very minimal. And also in the free tier itself, it is very sufficient for our scale, right? For example,
Ashwin, sorry, Kushang has raised his hand.
Yeah.
Kushang, you wanted to ask something? Okay, no problem. I think Ashwin, you can continue.
Yeah. Like in the free tier like option itself, right? Like in terms of database API hits, right? So Firebase is like scalable up to 1 million records with 10,000 transactions per second, right? So this scale is like very sufficient for our use case and the requirements. And so as you see here, like these are the features that are offered by Firebase, like the real-time database, and then the authentication service, cloud functions for running some like a Lambda like a function in the backend, and cloud storage for storing the files and then hosting the applications, and the cloud messaging for the push notifications, right? So like with all these things, will be able to develop our application in the given time, right? So not only that, the Firebase is offering like even more functionalities as well. Like for example, it is like offering machine learning things, and then the analytics, and also it is having some lots of plugin integration support, like the Slack integration, Skype integration. Lots of things are like offered by Firebase. So these are all the like points make us decided Firebase as a solution for our application. Yeah. So before going further, like so far any questions? Okay. So next, like we'll be looking into the features in detail. So from here, Sasi will take over. Over to you, Sasi.
Yeah, so we just spoke about all, I mean, in the beginning, I spoke about all the features that were needed for the app, right? So most of that was actually kind of matching with what Firebase offered. So we wanted a very simple authentication for the healthcare workers, because we don't even want them to be bothered by remembering a password, or even entering a OTP. So that was in Firebase. Firebase authentication is very versatile. It supports email, phone number, and also sign-in link, right? So all you need to do is generate a sign-in link, and it can be used for authentication. So we will cover that in detail during the demo. Yeah, but so this was a very cool feature and very simple to implement for the authentication, given that we wanted it to be very, very simple, right? And also in our use case, one other interesting feature that we wanted was we don't want the patients to log in. At the same time, we want to somehow identify the patients, right? So for that, Firebase provides anonymous authentication, right? So even that was kind of helpful. So all the different types of authentication that is provided ready-made in Firebase was kind of fitting to all the use cases that we had, right? Second thing is about the real-time database. So this is a very, very interesting and cool feature, where traditionally, if you want to develop a chat app, you have to implement WebSockets. You have to write a lot of boilerplate code, right? So all of that comes like literally free in Firebase, where it provides this real-time database, which is very, very simple to use. The data can be stored as a JSON. The chat room, once you create a chat room, all the chat messages can be stored within the database as a JSON, and you can delete, track. Everything is pretty straightforward. And for chat, we also needed the option to upload the files, as I mentioned. So for that, I think it's similar to S3. In this case, we use the cloud storage, and cloud storage also offers a decent SDK to kind of upload, track, progress, everything. So it went really seamlessly. So again, this we'll be covering in the demo again with the code. And so one limitation that was with real-time database was the scale and performance, right? So Firebase provided this as a additional feature on top of that. So Cloud Firestore, as Ashwin mentioned, has a very good scalability and also a good performance. In our use case, we didn't actually need that level of performance requirement, but however, we wanted to use it for the right thing. So for registration and other data storages, we used Firestore. And finally, so we also needed this push notification scheduling. So for that, we used Cloud Functions. Cloud Function is very similar. Like if you have used AWS, it's very similar to the Lambda. However, it is very much easier to set up because the configurations are very little. Like literally, it has only 6 triggers. It's more to do with the simplicity also. It's not as complex and does not have as many features as what Lambda has. So, I mean, for use cases like this, it's pretty much easy to use and easy to configure. And cloud messaging SDK, it's a single line of code to send the push notifications. Yeah. So before going to the demo, I just wanted to quickly go through the Firebase portal. So if you haven't seen this, so I mean, this is how it looks like. So if you want to start a new project, you have to create a project within the Firebase console. Once you create the project, the Firebase console, you get this whole dashboard of all the features that are being used. And as this is Google, you get Google Analytics for free integrated. And so all these authentication modules, it's just a matter of just adding a provider and then integrating that the app, right? And you also get the view of the database. So, for example, in this case, so the patient's volunteer data are all stored in Firestore. You can go through the data here. And one thing I just wanted to give a brief, but I mean, today's start scope, we can't cover this in detail. One thing about Firebase security is it's controlled using rules. So each of these databases, I mean, like tools, right? They have their own rules. So we have to customize these rules to provide security. At this point, we have made it open. This is not the right thing to do, right? Like you have to actually configure it to the users. But this is how Firebase provides authentication for the tools. And again, here also we can go through the database and look at the data. Fire storage is the cloud storage where you can look at the uploaded data. So this is mostly like a admin console, can be used as admin console, and also can also be used for debugging and other things. And I also wanted to quickly show the Firebase. I mean, like literally, when we look at these kind of things, so like we see that okay, there will be some limitations in terms of scaling, but I think that part also has been taken care of, and it's kind of Firestore provides very decent concurrent connections and also a number of writes per second, so which was a limitation in the real-time database, and that has been kind of been overcome in the cloud Firestore. So yeah, so the documentation is also like really good, right, with all the SDKs. Yeah. So with that, let's get into the code and also the actual demo.
Okay, so like first we'll start with the authentication. First we'll look into the demo, then like we'll go through the code. So as you see here, like we have this login button, right? So once it is clicked, it will ask for the registered email. This is for the volunteer login. As we already mentioned, for the patients, there is no login. They can log into the application, I mean the chat window, like as an anonymous user, right? So here, as the client is required this login mechanism as a passwordless mechanism, So we just the volunteer will just provide the registered email here, and in the email they will be getting some link. So if once they click the link, it will be redirect to the actual home page. So let me log in with the existing credentials. Okay. So it send the mail. So just copying this link. Yeah. So so this is the login that we have implemented. So this is the demo of that. We'll quickly look into the code uh, for the login implementation. Right. So the first thing is for the Firebase configuration, like already Sasi showed that Firebase console, right? So in the console, they will provide this all these details. So we have to provide these details here, and then we have to export. So from the component, we'll be able to import this Firebase, and then we can use that methods that are provided by this Firebase SDK. So we'll quickly look into the sign-in thing. So once that registered email is provided and the submit button is clicked, we are calling this send sign-in link to email, this method. So basically what this method is doing is, so here we have to provide the callback URL, and then the email which volunteer is entered, right? So this is a single line of code. With this, we will be able to send the login link to the user, right? So once a user clicks that link which sent to the Gmail, right? So it will directly redirect to the callback component. So in the callback component also, the code will be look like this. So basically here what we are doing, we are extracting that email from the local store and passing the link, the link which we read from the browser URL, and then what is the redirection URL. So how simple, right? So with the two lines of code, we'll be able to implement the complete login thing. So of course, we have to write lots of code for the UI, but in the aspect of backend, right? So this is the two a simple line of code. It will be very simple for us to implement that the login thing, right? So this is about that authentication. Next, we'll quickly look into the Firestore, that database for storing the transactional data, right? Uh, Here, we are having a one more button for the chat with the medical volunteer, right? So basically, this is for the patients. Once this button is clicked, so here it will open up some form. Here we are asking for the information about the patients, the basic information and their identity, and then we are also collecting the patient's symptoms, and then the disease that they are suffering from, right? So let me provide some sample data here. And I'm providing few symptoms. Yeah. So basically, the information that provided by the patient stored in the database. So for this storing, what we did for the backend implementation is, So here we have this patient wrapper component. So here in the basic information, we are collecting the basic information. And in the system checker, this is the second page. So here, once the user provided all the informations, they'll be clicking that submit button. So in the submit button, as you see here, we are calling this create patient method. So in this method, what we are doing is so here we created the instance for the Firestore, which is that the database, NoSQL database that Firebase is offering. So in the instance, it's like we have to pass that what is the collection, and then the data which a patient provided, right? So for the like the CRUD like APIs like Post, Get. So for all those things, like we didn't develop any backend. We are simply yeah, leverage that Firebase features, and then we implemented this CRUD operation within this few lines of code. So this is about that Firebase. Next, we'll look into our the main feature that is a chat. So and also before moving on to the chat, like I would like to point out one more feature in the Firestore itself. The Firestore is basically a it is also a real-time database. So in the another window, I just provided the information for the patient tree. So in that volunteers window, as you see here, I didn't reload the page, but it is pulled the data from the database. Like since it is a real time, like user doesn't need to refresh the page to like view the latest data. So it will automatically pull and it will be populated in this page.
And the school feature is coming literally without any line of code, right? And also, as Ashwin mentioned, the entire backend API, everything is also again like two, 3 lines of code. And I mean, like it's most of the code that was developed for this is like front end, right? Like the backend is literally coming for free. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the chat functionality. So once the patient get added, it will be available in the patient's queue. So as a volunteer, I can initiate the chat with them. Once that chat is initiated, the patient will be getting that chat URL via the SMS, right? So this is the same URL they will be getting. So for now, let me use the same URL. Okay, so from the patient's window, I'm initiating the chat. Yeah, so so this is the like the key feature of these applications, right? So to build this an entire chat application, we'll look into the code, like how we develop this chat thing. So this is that chat component. So similar to the Firestore, so here also we have to create the instance for the real-time database. So like here, so basically we have to import that Firebase SDK, and from the Firebase SDK we have to pass this the chat room path along with the ID, right? So once that patient or volunteer complete the typing, and then once they hit enter or click that send icon, right? So basically here we'll be calling this push message to chat, this method. So inside this method, what we are doing, right? So we are just calling the push method belongs to this instance, the database instance. So here we are passing that user ID. If the patient is for the patient, it is anonymous, right? So it will pass that session ID, and for the volunteers, it will pass that volunteers user ID and the text message, and also that the timestamp, right? So this is for pushing the chat to the other person. So the other person will be like listening to this chat for the real time, getting the message in the real time, right? So for the listener, so that is also like very simple. So in the component date mount, here we have added this listener. So basically we have to watch this the value listener message. So inside this, we'll be getting that chat as a snapshot. So basically, like we have to like once that volunteer or patient type their message, it will directly broadcast to the person who is in the other end, right? So in that browser window, this listener will execute it, and inside this we are looping, and then like this is just for the sake of user experience, right? So that sender like message will be shown up in the right side, and then the message from the receivers, it will be shown up in the left side, right? So for that sake, we have added this iteration kind of thing. So but the beauty is here for the entire the chat implementation, we just wrote around like 5 to 6 lines of code, right? So within this that entire chat application is like achieved, right? And also like as we already mentioned in the chat, the attachment also possible, like the patients will be sending their medical records as a image, and then like volunteers also share their prescription as the image, right? So for that so we have used that cloud storage. So for that also the implementation is like very few lines of code only. So let me show that. Yeah, so this is that file input field. Once that file is selected by the user, right? So like for the cloud storage, we are already created the instance in the like top of the file. So here again we have to pass that directory path and also the file name, and in the put we have to pass that file value that is extracted from the event, right? So once it is pushed, we have to listen for the that status, right? So here we are listening to this state changed status, and also we are passing 3 different callbacks. One is for like a progressing callback, and another is for error, and another is for complete. So basically once it is completed, we'll be getting that the URL to download that image. So basically that URL we are again pushing to the the real-time database along with that the user ID, date, and the other things, right? So also this cloud storage is also like achievable within a few lines of code. So with this cool features, right? So we didn't spend much time on the backend implementation. Like Firebase itself like made our life very easier. So we mostly spend our time on that user experiences, and with that, like we were able to deliver this entire application within a week. Right? Yeah. So I'm giving a pause here. So anyone have any questions? Okay. So the next features that we are going to look about it is that cloud functions, and then the push notifications. So from here, Sasi will take over. Over to you, Sasi.
Thanks, Ashwin. I think Ashwin has covered almost all the things. So I just quickly go through the cloud functions. So until now, whatever we saw was Firebase client SDK, right? Like it's from the front end, right? So apart from that, as we mentioned initially, there were 2 use cases, right? One is to schedule push notification, and also we wanted an endpoint for sending the SMS. So for both of that, we used cloud functions. So Cloud Function, it's I mean like very similar to Lambda. So I mean, but the thing is, it's very less code. All you need is like a few lines of code to get a endpoint up and running. And also for scheduling, also it's just a very limited function. And even the push notification part, there is a ready-made admin within the Firebase admin module. So they had this messaging method where you just need to pass the message, right? So and then so all of that works. Yeah. So that's pretty much it, right? Like it was pretty simple to kind of get this entire thing working. So this whole part of the code was for the backend, like the admin part, and the rest of the things were from the from the client side. And also from a deployment perspective, it's very straightforward. Like again, Firebase provides packages for that, and you can directly use the deploy command, exploring functions for function to deploy only the functions, or you can deploy the entire whole structure into it. Yeah. With that, I mean, we can close the demo. So other thing, right? Post this. So this was the first time we built this entire app using Firebase. So we discussed about, I mean, what are the other places where we can use this. So I was telling Ashwin, you should probably build a personalized chat app and gift it to your girlfriend. So the whole thing is very easy, right? Like you can, and you have a free tier. So why not? I mean, you create your customized app and you can use it. It's very simplified, right? And also I have seen people developing mobile apps and spending a lot of time on backend and then maintaining servers for that, writing APIs. So if you're doing anything like that, right? Like if you want to like be it a pet project or like if you want to develop a quick prototype to validate something. So there was this product where like they just built a front end without any back end, just to test and validate with the customers, and then they were getting orders and they were processing everything manually. So in such cases, possibly, right, like Firebase is really kind of very good to use, right? Not just Firebase, anything like Supabase, Amplify. And that does not mean that you can't use it for any production ready app, right? Like even in this case, it's a production app. So, I mean, it's also can be used based on the scope. But we just wanted to call out, I mean, these kind of use cases where you can build something quickly and validate. Yeah. Any questions?
Folks, you can drop your questions in a Q&A box, as you can raise your hands so that you can directly interact with the speakers.
Just want to reiterate. So though we focused on Firebase as a tool, but I would say it's also a takeaway for us as developers that, okay, there is this Baas. I mean, it's not just about Firebase. It could be Amplify or Supabase or anything, right? Like where, okay, we should always not get into the loophole of the traditional way of approaching problem solving, right? Like with the way in which things are evolving, right? So I mean, so that was the intention here. However, Firebase solved our problem, so this went little in depth on Firebase. Yeah.
So we have a question from Anand Raj. Any suggestions on when you should not use this?
I mean, if it's going to be a very huge scale and if pricing is going to be a factor, right? So for example, let's take an enterprise application where a lot of people are going to use. Post the free tier, it becomes little costly. So, and if you're going to develop your entire application using that, then it's going to be little critical, right? So pricing is a challenge. So that part we have to be little aware of. I think if we get into a hybrid mode, it's okay, right? And with Cloud Store, it's little bit more flexible. Right? It's again like a NoSQL kind of a thing, right? Like where if you are so as we mentioned our use case, right? Chat, upload, scheduling. So if you have this kind of a problem and everything fits naturally, Firebase is the way to go. But if it's a traditional enterprise thing, it's going to scale and the pricing is going to be a problem. And you have a lot of relational tables to manage. So in those cases, you can't avoid the good old way of the API-based approach. Anyone else want to share any other, I mean, like alternatives, anything you have tried? Cool.
Thanks a lot for the session, Sasi and Ashwin. I hope the session was really informative, and I hope everyone here felt the same as well. Just one thing, folks, I have circulated a Google form in the chat, and please provide us your valuable feedback. It would really help us course correct our upcoming sessions.
Also, the session is being live streamed in YouTube. You'll be able to find it in our YouTube channel, GeekNight Chennai. So please feel to subscribe and share it with your circles.